Welcome. It has just gone 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Thursday the 27th of June, and you are watching episode 138 of Regional Wrap. Regional Wrap providing insight on the issues affecting regional Australia and giving a voice to regional residents. My name is Bill Bates, and joining me on this episode is Brisbane Burning Bridges with North Queensland. Is my guest Greg Williams, owner of the Cape Gateway Motel and a civil engineer of 40 years experience. Greg was born in Atherton, and after leaving school, he worked in the then flourishing tobacco industry of Mareeba. After a short stint, he ventured across the ditch and worked as a plant operator in civil engineering construction industry. After 3 years, he returned to Australia to work for the Lands Department as a cadet land ranger in Brisbane and Cloncurry. Greg joined the Main Roads Department based in Cloncurry as a works manager, supervising the construction of beef roads and highway projects in the region. He went on to work for the McKinley, Julia Creek, Carpentaria and Mareeba Shires in the 70s as a civil works manager. In 1981, he started his own excavation business and a year later incorporated as a civil construction business. The business was engaged in many projects, including housing subdivision, airstrip, construction, sewage reticulation and roadworks from the Gulf through the Cape. Works also included site preparation for various Cape Indigenous communities. In 1991, the business relocated to Weipa. Cape projects include the building of a major depot, office and accommodation complex, the development of 25 freehold home lots, and later some 100 lots for Comelco and Rio Tinto operations in Weipa. The business went on to build about 36 kilometres of the Peninsula Development Road, subdivision and civil projects in Arakoon, and roads to both Arakoon and Mapoon. Additionally, it was engaged in the construction of the Paparoa and Mapoon airports, together with numerous water and sewage reticulation systems in many of the communities, including Mornington Island. Greg sold his business about 11 years ago and retired to Mareeba, but has since built the Cape Gateway Motel, which opened its doors in 2020, and he continues to operate. Welcome, Greg.
Yeah, g'day, Bill. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for giving us your time tonight. It's really appreciated. Now, what we want to talk about tonight is the situation with the Kuranda Range Road. Back in July 2021, the Main Roads Department issued a strategy for the Range Road crossing between the Tablelands and Cairns. Now, that report basically suggested that the road was fit for purpose till 2051. I think most of the people in Cairns probably laughed out loud when they heard that. But it also didn't take into account that the Kuranda Range Bridge was also nearing its end of 65 years life of type. So you've been up here for a long time. You know the road well, and you also know that bridge pretty well. And from your construction history, you'd know a little bit about its type of construction and what its failings are.
Yes, Bill. It's failing. It's not failing in foundations. I mean, the actual geotechnical situation is fine. The footings are fine. The piers are fine. The headstocks and abutments are fine. But it's failing above the headstocks and abutments with the bearings and all the other connectors that hold the bridge up and allow it to move. And it is at the end of its time.
What I'll do now, I'll just share a couple of images. Yes, Greg, this is our little map of the Cairns area and our range crossing the Kuranda Range. Basically, it wanders up over the range, and then actually, when you're actually at the top of the range and passing Kuranda, you come to the crossing for the Kuranda Bridge, for the Barron River Bridge up here, where the red arrow is. So really, it's right up on top of the range itself, almost on the plateau.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Construction.
just,
So
it's
maybe
just
you can
ahead
tell
of the
us
Barron
what
Falls.
sort of typical construction this is.
Yeah, well, the
Yeah.
construction
So
is
the type of bridge.
it's a very simple structure. Foundations either directly connected to the rock subbase, columns or piers, headstocks, and then this bridge is pretty unique. There's only a couple built in the country. That's probably why it's no more built, but it was pre-assembled and then launched out over the abutments and put into place to the next one using counterweights and so forth to get it into position. And then it had a concrete deck poured on it. Current structures wouldn't use that system. They would use the base foundations and the headstock, the piers and the headstocks as that photo showed, and then precast, pre-stressed beams that could be made remotely and then launched out over the top and then bolted together with McAloy bars and then put a deck on it. And it's a very simple, well tried and true process, and it doesn't need a lot of design because it's a proven method of construction. What was the question?
Okay. I was just saying, you wouldn't use the steel type beam construction. You'd use preformed concrete.
Yeah, I mean
Beam.
that's exactly how the Archer River Bridge is being built. I see the pre-constructed beams going past my place all the time, and they get elevated by crane in that situation on top of the headstocks, but you can launch them out by sliding them across bearing surfaces till they get onto the next headstock, using a whole system of cantilevers and so forth. But and or you can lift them on with a crane. But it's a very simple and tried and true process, and I don't know why they're talking about so much design time when the geotechnical information of the existing bridge has proven that the foundations are fine. And so, it's not rocket science, it's just a matter of getting on with it.
But with this old construction, which you suggest we wouldn't use anymore, is the steel the weakest part of it actually? Like, is that the part that's going to basically have more wear and tear than the new types of construction?
That's what's failing. It's stressing and fatiguing, and the welds are cracking through flexing, and the foundations, the neoprene bearings are failing, and the system now. I mean, as I said, there's only I think 2 bridges built in this form in Australia. There's thousands of bridges built with precast beams and assembly on site. It's a proven method of construction.
And they've already spent a long time inspecting and doing bits of work underneath the bridge, checking welds and re-welding and that. But is that fruitless? It's basically it doesn't necessarily give it any more life or type. It just prevents it from failing.
Well, it's not. Yeah, it's not fruitless. If they don't do it, it'll fail, and it still could fail. I'm not trying to put a fear tactic into it, but The reason that they've dropped the weight limit and put traffic down the middle is that there's a huge risk of, say, two fully laden trucks hitting one span at the one time, and the potential for it to fail.
Well, this is an image of how it is set up to be that it's only alternating traffic in each direction for a period. And like you said, the load limit's been put down to 50 tonne. So that would have a fairly drastic impact on the economic conditions for goods and services between the Tablelands and Cairns.
Oh yeah, obviously. I mean, if you can cart less freight, still costs the same to get it up there. So it's going to cost you more per kilo or per pallet to get it up there.
Well, I've also heard that tankers with fuel only go up there half full because of the weight restrictions. So that would pretty well double the transport cost of fuel going up there if you have to do two trips instead of one.
Yeah, I don't know about half, 50%, but there is a definite reduction because they've dropped the tonnage, but it's certainly not half. But don't want to dramatise it too much, but it does cost more per litre to cart less in the tanker.
The other thing is that road has never been any approved for double Bs and that. That's also a major restriction on economic development if we can't utilise double Bs for transport down to the port, because all it does is keep increasing the price. If you have to deshackle up in Mareeba somewhere, drop one trailer off, bring one down, go back, get the other one and bring it down, it's just a nightmare for transport operators and people, trying to get their produce to market.
Yeah, and obviously costs a lot more to do that. It's a matter of how many pallet spaces you can get on a truck. And, with a B double, you can get a lot more than you can with a single trailer, and for virtually almost the same cost of fuel and tyres and so forth.
The other thing is too, there is talk about a hub up in Mareeba, a transport hub and a development hub for transport. And the way the things are with the Kuranda Range, it seems that unless something is done, and especially fixing that bridge has to be in the first instance, there would be growing pressure on people in the transport industry and produce people to think about maybe just bypass Cairns altogether and just rocket things down as fast as they can down to Townsville, because that might be an economic improvement.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a whole different subject, Bill. Taking freight from here south via the western route is another issue in itself, and needs to be looked at, because currently you can't take multi-combinations from Mareeba straight out, and you have to uncouple whichever way you go, inland or down the coast. The preferred route for fruit and veggies out of the tableland is the inland route, which is a whole different subject again, and worthy of a fair bit of time being spent on it. But I can tell you that the LNP, David Kempton, and the LNP have come out and said that they're going to really try and develop a distribution hub in Mareeba. Now, to do that, it has to have good access and good roads, including the Kuranda Range and the Utan and or the inland route that'll take you all the way down through back behind the Great Dividing Range. And it's a very important, and they're two different subjects, but they're linked.
Yeah, but the thing is, people in Cairns don't seem to realise the importance of having that range road and the connection to Mareeba and the Tablelands, to put more emphasis. We've got 3 members of parliament in Cairns, and they seem to be focused on tourism and stuff like that. Do you think we need to try to get them to focus on the overall development of the far north Queensland, including the Cape and the Tablelands?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Cape and the Mareeba area is the food bowl of the north and further south. I mean, the amount of produce that comes out of this area is phenomenal. And, you know, people in Cairns probably don't benefit directly from that. However, as a safety aspect, Cairns, as you know, is some regions of Cairns are less than a metre above sea level. And if you get a situation with a cyclone or a tsunami or something similar to that, there has to be an escape route. And, you know, if the Kuranda Range is out of action, where are they going to go?
Well, I think we had a test all that a couple of years ago. There was a situation, and a lot of people try to exit Cairns, but even the road south, although it's improved a bit now, it was virtually impossible to get the volume of people out in a reasonable time. Even you know, going down the Bruce Highway. So if we haven't got a good route over we need a good safe route over the range. And let's face it, get top of the range, you're 400 metres above sea level, so you're not worried too much.
No, I think we should focus on the bridge, because the bridge at the moment is the linchpin, and that is the situation that's going to cause an incredible amount of angst. It is causing a lot of angst now, but imagine if it gets to the point where it has to be shut. Just put yourself in a position of a business person in the Mareeba or the Tableland area, and their freight's going to cost at least double to get into the area. And this whole situation of this bridge has been been warned about for 15 odd years, and it just gets shoved under the mat. And it's now got to the situation where it is so critical that it is that we need to just put 100% of our energies and efforts into it. And as was the situation with the replacement of the bridge on the Fitzroy River in Western Australia, it can be, and I emphasise, can be built in 12 months, designed and built in 12 months or under 12 months. So for God's sake, we've just got to get that message out to say, well, get off your dots and get it built.
It's quite surprising, but the strategic report in 2021, they would have known that the bridge was reaching end of life of type anyway, but it never overly featured in that document. And they're still allowed to say, well, the whole thing's fit for purpose to 2051. But we've added a few more problems, haven't we, to the situation with some of the traffic management's devices that they decide to put in to prolong the life of the Kuranda Range Road as it is.
Well, that was an engineering disaster. Absolutely unnecessary. I mean, they say it's a safety measure, reduce the speed. Any competent driver will reduce the speed in wet conditions anyhow, and any person that's not a competent driver is going to drive how they like anyhow. So tell me where $40-odd million is going to save any significant amount of lives. However, having built it, when they built it, it was meant to be bored. All the cabling was meant to be bored. So and for whether it cost too much or whatever reason, they changed to trenching. And when they trenched, it created a vertical shear point on the road, which is adjacent to the edge of the road. And when the water got into that gap, it collapsed and slid down into the bottom. And that's evident now. These two major areas, you can see the shear line, and you can see where the infrastructure that they built is dropped down into the hole. And currently, Main Roads will tell you, they're not repairing that. They're just doing preventative maintenance on it, and still haven't come up with a solution to repair that situation with the road. And mate, I just can't believe how complicated they're making it. Simply you could sheet pile down the bottom, create a foundation, build gabions to the top, fill behind, and away you go. I mean, to me, it's tried and proven engineering procedures, and they're just complicating it. I don't know, for whatever reason, it's funds or incompetence or whatever, but that problem with the range is not being repaired at the moment. I must emphasize that it's not being repaired. All they're doing is making it, or trying to make it safe from further erosion. So we've got to go through another wet season yet. We've got to go through another 12 months maybe of the inconvenience of one lane, and it can and could be avoided.
Well, even the most layman, going up that Kuranda Range Road would certainly get the impression that there's always a possibility of landslide type area, because it's not as though it's sitting on big granite rock. A lot of it's just sort of shale and slip area. So it's basically weak in the first place. It's always had trouble. And I mean, over the years, you can see areas that have been underpinned into the side of the hill to try to stabilise it and that. So it does sort of beg the question, when they did that traffic management system and they did use diggers, it does make you wonder what they were thinking at the time.
Well, it's obvious that, had they just bored it all, you only got a small hole going through, and you don't compromise the whole face of the slope. Having dug a trench, you got a vertical shear face, which is no longer able to hold on, and couple that with intrusion of water, and you've got a slip and a collapse, which is evident. You can see that's what's happened now.
Well, when Jasper came
Main
through,
Main roads deny that. They say that had nothing to do with it. But, that blind Freddie can tell you that that's what caused it.
Well, the trailing rain from Jasper brought about 800 odd mils to the area. So it certainly got a good dumping and test out, and obviously it failed. So, but it didn't matter. Even if we had normal wet season, it would just be a matter of time for those shear points would be compromised anyway. It's just that Jasper helped it along with such a big volume of water, I suppose.
Absolutely, Bill. And don't just remember this. That's not the end of it. There's some other regions and other areas now that even the one of the engineers from Main Roads admitted the other day in an interview that there could be more areas that could fail. So, I mean, obviously they're probably monitoring those, but anywhere where this same situation has occurred, this will happen, and could and will happen.
Well, we seem to have two problems now. We have the roadway itself going down the range on the side of the hill, and then we also got the problem with the Kuranda Range Bridge. Now, it's sort of we might go and build a nice new bridge, but then the rest of the range road eventually falls down, so we're pretty well stifled anyway. So I suppose it's a matter of priority to get the.
I don't think the range road will fail totally, but it could be for a long time down to one lane, which is a terrible bloody disadvantage, and it makes it very difficult for business and everyone else in the area. For it to fail totally, I think, is a bit over the top, but certainly I think we've got to put up with one lane for at least 12 months in some regions.
Okay, so the rectification of the bridge, do you think rather than sort of just allocating, I think they've allocated $15 million over this next 6 years to do some sort of investigation and study, do you think they're just wasting $15 million and they just need to get onto it?
Look, I want to emphasise the the foundations are proven from the existing bridge. There's no failure there. So replicate that in a new structure beside it. So you don't have any great amount of geotechnical investigation to do. You just use what you got. And the procedure to build, or the process of building a bridge with concrete footings, columns, headstocks, and precast deck units is a tried and true proven method. And as happened in Western Australia with the Fitzroy River Bridge, it can and could be built within 12 months. So this business of 5 years is an absolute lot of shit. And the fact that they're going to spend $15 million investigating it when it's so obvious what has to be done. And all they need to do is main roads, call for an expression of interest from experienced and capable contractors to do a design and construct of it, get out of it themselves, apart from other than administering the funds and the process. And as what happened in the Fitzroy River Bridge in Western Australia, a consortium of 3 people or 3 major contractors, who I might add have branches in Queensland, could design it. One group designed it and 2 others collaborated to build it, and it was built in under 12 months. And the same thing could happen here. All it needs is to do a process of design and construct, and forget about this. You know, how many times have we investigated? How many times have we looked into how it's going to be built? I mean, to me, it's so simple to build it exactly the same as the Fitzroy River Bridge and get it built. It's too late now this year because you have to have a complete dry season, but you could plan it. You could start building the approaches now, and you could then say, well, righto, as soon as the wet season's over next year, we're going to get into it, and by the following wet, it should be built.
But really, it rests with our political masters in regards in giving it the tick in the box and saying they're going to give the funds to it. I mean, that is the key point, and we don't seem to have the political will out of Brisbane to start that process. But what I might just move on to now, and we'll talk about the Fitzroy River Bridge, so we can see what the methodology is, and then we can come back to see what would make the government get off its backside and actually initiate the project. So I'll just put up an image of the Fitzroy River Bridge, the old one. This is the old Fitzroy River Bridge. It looks like it's got steel pylons or something on the side, you know, in an A-frame.
They're concrete piles, driven piles.
Would be there concrete foundations down here?
No, they work on the basis of driving them down till you get resistance enough to stop them wanting to go. You just keep driving them until you get them to withstand the load that you want to put on them.
So they'd have to be pretty good with all their angles for each one of them, but I suppose engineers are good at that.
Yeah, well, the angles are, of course, to give you stability longer, you know, transversely. But, you know, obviously, what happened in the cyclone, that area wasn't strong enough to withstand the pressure put by floodwaters on the deck. And that caused one of the deck sections or one or more of the deck sections to wash away. So
this steel deck up here would be similar to what's on the Kuranda Range, the Barron River Bridge at Kuranda, like that steel girders or something along there, is it?
No, I think that's concrete girders. I think that's precast concrete girders.
It just looks like a rivets there.
Yeah, no, it's anyhow. I wouldn't swear by that, but that's what it looks like. And
okay.
And if you look at at least the replacement was built with concrete girders.
Yep. Well, this is the aftermath of the the flood waters that went through, and that's what it was left like. So the landing on this side is gone, and it's broken in half over in the middle. So
Yeah.
it obviously needed a replacement, because you're not going to repair that. So maybe now you can talk us through what they're doing in regards to this.
Well, obviously they had to demolish that.
This is
But you can see what they've done. They've built a side track through the creek or the river, and that's given them access. And then one of the other things they did, they expanded the length of each span so that they didn't have to have as many foundations. Beefed up the foundations and made very long spans and that was the reason for that was to speed up the ability to replace the bridge. It was easier to build the units on shore and cut down the number of foundations that you had to build than to build it with the same spacing, same deck lengths.
So that's the first part of when they're getting ready, and this is where you can see the concrete headers coming up there. So it still looks like there's a few there, but it's going across a fair bit onto each side of the river. But in the river section, there's probably one.
They precast the girders and then slide them out over the top of the headstocks as a method of construction, and it's happened in many other cases, and it is a very quick and efficient way of building a precast concrete bridge.
So would the girders and that be made like in Perth and brought all the way up, or would they be done closer?
Well, in this case, they were made in Perth because they didn't have the infrastructure or the concrete plants and so forth there. But in our situation, at the very worst, they'd only have to be made in Cairns. But there is potential to find a site and cast and pre-stress the girders
on the Tablelands.
Yeah, no, right on the bridge site. There's an area there, not that far off the bridge site, that you could build them and then, transport them into position and slide them over the headstocks.
Well, put it like that. If they're made by in Cairns, they probably all have to go all the way down to the Palmerston and up.
Yeah, they would. Whereas if they were made,
they wouldn't be coming up the Kuranda Range Road.
No, whereas if they were made in Kuranda, which I'm proposing, yep. You can get concrete from Arriva and or Cairns and cast them there, and you haven't got any problems with up and down the range with your long girders. So
to get to just this stage, obviously this is all done in one dry season because the river's still down. So what are we talking about? Like if you decide to do it and you did all your preparation before you started going into the making the bridge, what sort of time period would you get to this stage that they're at here with the?
Well, the only thing that's left here for you to do this year until the wet season is approaches. I mean, they know exactly where the bridge is going to go and be positioned. There's no reason why the approaches couldn't be started and have all that earthworks done and dusted and out of the way for when the bridge is built. Now, that bridge could very, very easily be built in a dry season if they build it under the same method as they built the Fitzroy River Bridge, which is a tried and proven method of bridge construction, which is simply foundations, piers, headstocks, and precast girders. And it could definitely be built before the end of next wet season if they have the will and if they have the money.
Well, that's always seems to be a problem when they're just talking about giving us $15 million in the budget to have a think about it. Sounds like just a bit of a feeding frenzy for a few consultants. But this one, they've now got the deck on top.
Yep.
So from when you start the deck to when you get to that sort of stage, to nearly finishing it to the banks. So that's only a matter of weeks, or that is that everything was already made on site, and it's just a matter of putting it in position.
Oh, it's very simple. I mean, if your abutments, if your piers and abutments are built and your headstocks are all there, and your bridge components are precast, you could put those deck units on in a week, because it's just like a Meccano set. You just put it together and bolt it. Oh, well, no, I stand corrected. You could put the girders on in a week, then you still have to either pour a deck on top of them, and put curb units on and a couple of other things. So it would take a little longer than that, yeah, to be fair.
Okay.
But definitely the whole, with the right will and planning,
Expertise.
it could be built under 12 months, because it's no different to what was done in Western Australia.
And that's not exactly a small bridge, the one going across the Fitzroy River. What would be
273 meters, if I recall.
and what's the Barron Bridge on Kuranda? Roughly the same or a little bit less?
Oh, I think it'd be very similar. I just don't know exactly what it is. It wouldn't be very dissimilar to that.
So basically, if there's a will, there's a way, as long as we've got the money.
Yeah. I mean, but definitely do it under by the method of design and construct, where you use private qualified contractors to build it, and just use the Department of Transport to manage the operation, call for the right people to do it, and then step back and let them build it.
Well, we've just got to get them started. But what sort of pressure do you think needs to be applied to sort of get Brisbane on the same page and to meet our needs? Do you think it's something that should be pushed as we move towards election? A bit of pressure on the candidates and the parties to commit to building the bridge?
Well, Bill, the current government is virtually throwing their white flag up, and I think they realise that they're a limited time in power, so they're not really worried about what's going on. So trying to get in something from them, the Crawford crew and all the rest of it, is virtually impossible. The current candidates, I'm sure, and at least I can speak on behalf of David Kempton, David is fully aware of what has to be done to make this bridge a reality. But then it still needs, that even if and when there's a change of government, you still have to get the commitment to spend the money in the region, and that is going to waste the rest of this year. I mean, after the election, unfortunately, it could mean that before the process can be put into place, it might be another wet season. So, God knows, how long will we have to put up with this?
But do you think the people of Cairns and the Tableland should be starting to sort of rally around this issue now to make it an issue come the October election? And like all the Cairns, the councils, business people, transport operators start getting together now and start presenting it as an election issue that has to be delivered.
Absolutely correct, Bill. And I just don't think the severity of it has really gotten home. I know the current candidates are making a big thing about it. I mean, James or Jones, she was at the bridge the other day with David Kempton, and they were saying, that they commit to building and replacing the bridge. And I'm certain the will's there with the candidates, but then you still got to get the money. So we need to get pressure on by every organisation that can possibly put pressure. You know, your Chamber of Commerce's, your tourist organisations, your fruit growers bodies, everybody that has any ability to put pressure on should be putting pressure on.
Well, we definitely need to get it as a commitment by both the major parties as policy that whoever's elected, they're going to run with it, because I think it's so important to the economic development and well, just maintaining the economic development and making it safe for people to cross the range anyway.
The tableland and the peninsula can't exist without the Kuranda Range. I mean, if you go back, if we'd have built the Redicliffe or alternate route to Mareeba or the Tablelands, the pressure would be off. I don't want to emphasise that, because I think the most important thing to do is it's too late for that. You know, I mean, we should have done that before this situation arose. Then you'd have the pressure off the bridge. Then you wouldn't have the same need to replace it with the same urgency. It could be a low tonnage bridge. All of these things, but it's easy in hindsight. Currently, we don't have the advantage of that. We have to now look at doing it back to front, is the way I look at it. We now have to replace the bridge and then build an alternate route. Had we been able to have the time and people listened, because for 15 years we've been talking about this alternate route, and particularly in the last 2 or 3 years.
I think it goes back to the 90s.
Well, it does. Martin Tenney and Ron Redicliffe, which is why this route that we're talking about is named. They looked at it many years ago, and it was decided that it was, you know, a realistic and a route that would make access to the tableland so much better.
But now we've got to a situation where we've got maybe a dangerous situation development, and that's got to be addressed first and foremost.
Yeah, the whole thing's changed around. We've got no option but to replace the bridge now. Now, I emphasise now, because whether it falls down or not, just the economic bloody disadvantage of having one lane and reduced tonnages and everything are putting a huge impost on the business and the people of the Tablelands and Gulf and Cape York. So now is the time to get that done. We've got no option but to do it in that form. Had we been able to get people to listen earlier, and the other route was built, it would take the pressure off the bridge, because the other route doesn't cross the Barron. It only crosses the up headwaters of the Closey. So anyhow, that I don't want to get away from the importance of getting this bridge replaced. And I mean, there's another lot of other things that we need to spend some time on too, like a distribution hub in Mareeba, and you know, there's a million other things that we could talk about. But right now, the most important thing that has to happen for the Tablelands and the Cape area and the Gulf is the Barron River Bridge needs to be replaced ASAP.
And it's been most fortuitous that the Fitzroy Bridge failed and got replaced because there we have the proof in the pudding that it can be done in a timely manner. I'm not sure what the budget for it, but obviously came in on time from the works that they did. Do you possibly have a bit of an idea of the budget for the Fitzroy Bridge? Or something I'll check on anyway for later on.
I've no idea.
But we do know the government stumped up the money pretty quick.
Yeah, but I mean, I've no idea what the price was, but I mean, that's easy enough to find out. But the price is one thing. The urgency and the need for it is another. Imagine Imagine if all of a sudden that bridge is reduced again in tonnage, which will happen. Don't worry. You wait. You wait. It'll get reduced further, and then the absolute worst scenario is that you get a rogue load goes over it and causes it to collapse.
No, we don't want to be the prophets of doom, but
No, and
that's
I'm not
always
saying I don't think that's you know, and it's potentially able to happen, but I don't think I think I'm being, that's a bit too much of a scare tactic to say that it could fall down tomorrow, but it potentially could fall down.
Well, some drivers. Well, if you go to Melbourne, there's plenty of drivers who have gone into tunnels and that with overhyped vehicles and come to grief. So we could always have someone who does make a mistake. It's always a possibility.
Yeah, I think transport operators are fairly responsible people. I very much doubt you'd get an overload going over it because everyone's aware of what has to happen. But however, having said that, that's the reason we've got it down to one lane now, because they're worried about two trucks being on the one span at the one time.
Well, it's obviously something urgent we've got to do, and we've got to bring pressure to bear on the political parties that, especially as we go into this election in October, to get some sort of commitment and concrete commitment at that it's going to get done. And like you say, well, they're obviously going to use the best methodology, and the Fitzroy River Bridge has sort of given us the clue there.
No, it's very basic, very simple, tried and proven engineering type bridge structures. You don't have to reinvent anything. It's just the geotechnical information's there, the foundations can be built, the piers can be built, the headstocks can be built, precast the deck units and whack it together. It's fully, like a Meccano said, very, very simple type of structure, costs a shitload of money and needs people to commit to it.
Just in the local community, sort of what is the mood and support for getting the bridge done, though, from the people you've engaged with and maybe business and councils and things like that? Because I mean, I hear people complain about the Range Road and that, but I haven't heard a lot from the powers that be, locally, that that they're jumping up and down and want it done ASAP.
Well, Bill, I don't think it's set in. I don't think it's, they really understand the severity of it yet. Because Main Roads kept it under their up their sleeve and didn't say anything about it, now they're starting to tell us how severe the problem is. I don't think that people in general really understand the severity of the situation.
Well, hopefully we can make them aware of it. But just sort of branching out a little bit, what other sort of choke points do you think we've got in regards to bridges and that for our economic development in northern Queensland? Because we do always need good connectors between ports and main industries and that. And there's always been contention on the Bruce Highway. Here we are in the 2020s, and a lot of the Bruce Highway has been improved over time, but there's still a lot of points in it that are choke points. And one place that really scares the hell out of me is crossing the Burdekin River when there's a semi-trailer coming at you the other way.
Yeah.
So I'll just put up a screenshot. This is the Inkerman Bridge going across the Burdekin, and that's a fairly sizable. I think it's one of the longer bridges in Australia. I think it's almost nearly twice the length of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, or 1.5 times.
Yeah.
But it's obviously got a lot of spans in it. But this is the deck going over. But I've come across there a few times at night, and not only in a car, and you've got a semi coming towards you, you're just hoping that he's wide awake and he's got to stay in his lane. But I don't imagine what it's like with a semi going each way. But although I've never heard any problems with the structure of this bridge, but it must be an economic choke somewhere.
It'll be scary, but you know, like that situation we don't have on this bridge. But what we got is that we build this bridge. Assume we build this bridge. Well, when we build this bridge, not assume, we have to build it. Then it's not much point spending millions and millions and millions of dollars upgrading the existing Kuranda Range, because it's just so difficult under traffic to build a piece of road or to change a piece of road. I mean, for every 8 hours you spend at work, you probably only do 2 hours of construction, because the rest of the time is managing traffic. So therefore, the logical thing to do is to build an alternate route on a greenfield site where you can build it without traffic and far less money per kilometre, and then just reduce the reliance on the Kuranda Range so that its current format is sufficient to handle what we need to put over it.
And it's just unfortunate we've let the bridge get to this stage where it's become it is a matter of it being the first priority, because it would, by the time we get an alternate crossing, that bridge will be well and truly past its life of tight, and we'd be in all sorts of trouble. So it has overtaken the whole sort of idea of another range crossing, because it's just such a priority now.
Yeah, it's changed the whole way we have to think about it.
Just moving on to this, you were involved in the Peninsula Development Road. Last time I went up to Weep, it was about 2017, and I think there was about the change between corrugated gravel and asphalt. I think it changed about 26 times from asphalt to corrugated gravel. Now, do you think there would be a better way to making that road? Because it seemed to me, what you're talking about just before, is when you're trying to fix a road that's in use, you've got all sorts of delays. And considering the land available up on the Cape and along that road, and why was it things like, well, just upkeep the current gravel road and just build a development road right alongside it, so you never interfered with the traffic that was already there, and you had a clear shot of all those kilometres without traffic on it.
Now we went about it the other way. We built a side track down each side in the Tablelands, and you've diverted your traffic to either side of the road because there's plenty of room. And then we built without interference on the existing road. And that's how we constructed the sections we did, by having a side track down each side. So we didn't have, because we had the room to do that, and most of the Cape is like that. Now, as to why there was a whole series of short bits of bitumen and then dirt sections, the theory was, or what was proposed was, that if you got behind a road train, every 15 kilometres there was going to be a 5 kilometre section of bitumen. And it was purely as a safety, to do it that way, so that you knew that you only had to put up with the dust, and then in 15 k's at the most, you're going to get to another section of bitumen that you can pass on. And that is what the reasoning, that was the logic behind that.
So when you did your 36 kilometres, was it all from one end, or was it bits and pieces?
No, we did it over about 3 sections. 16 k's, I think, was the biggest, and the others were, 4 or 5 k's. Might have been 3, 4 sections, but all up around the Cowan region and between Archer River and Weeper.
Well, I still found it a very arduous trip in 2017. It certainly rattled the old car around.
In the 90s or the late 80s, when I first went up there, it just take 2 days to get to Weeper.
Well, well, I don't think I'd like to endure that, and I wouldn't want my other half to endure that, that's for sure. Okay, look, what we might do, we'll wrap up this episode talking about the bridge, but I wonder if you could join us next week with Ken Harley, and we'll talk about the range crossing, what the requirements, as in. I come from an engineer, from electronics engineering background, and when we were asked to make something or get something for the military, the operators or the users came up with their statement of requirements. So I suppose what we should be looking at is what the demands are going to be on the road. So then the people who have got to build it have got to target what they have to build and what has to get up and down as far as weight, the type of cargo and all those sort of things, because they would have to influence what you need to build as a road, especially like say we had to, one of the requirements is defence, and we had to take Abraham tanks or something up to Sherga or something like that. So all those considerations for maximum weight, maximum width, dangerous goods and all those sort of things, they would all have to be explored before you probably as part of your initial planning for the design.
Yeah, that's correct. That's pretty simple though. You need to build a limited access road, so you don't want people coming on and off it everywhere, causing problems with slowing down traffic and having interaction of traffic from different directions. You need to make it like a freeway. You need to have it with 4 lanes, so that if one lane has a major incident, pair of lanes, you can divert through the other lanes. And it's not rocket science. You just need to build an uninterrupted freeway type road between the Western Arterial Road and in this case to Davies Creek. And you can do that without any problems because there's no, it's a greenfield site, and you can get the big bang for your buck because you haven't got the problem of dealing with traffic while you're building.
Okay then. So if you're okay with that, would you like to return next week, and we'll have Ken Harley with us and talk about crossing the range and explore the Redcliffe Highway?
Mate, if you're prepared to listen to me, I'm prepared to get on here and talk.
Okay then, no worries. Thanks very much, Greg. Look, if you just hold on the line, I'll just wind the show up and just introduce next week's show, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Greg. If you enjoyed tonight's show, please
I have enjoyed it, and I've managed to get a few points that I've always had on my chest that I needed to talk about out in the public arena.
Yeah, it's out there in cyberspace now. Yeah, so if you enjoyed the show, please like, share, and subscribe to our Facebook page, and you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you join us next week, we'll have Greg Williams back on again, but with Ken Harley. Ken Harley is the driving force behind the Redcliffe Highway, and we'll discuss the options and needs of getting across a new roadway across the Kuranda Range, and the general layout of what the proposed Redcliffe Highway is. So join us again next week. Thank you.